Hello, welcome to AZ-900 Microsoft Azure Fundamentals Training Series. In today's video, we are going to dive into an interesting topic and we will focus on virtual machines. Then we will have a deep dive into the scalability and high availability options with Azure Virtual Machines, where we will focus on virtual machine scale sets and availability sets. My name is Bilel MAROUEN. I'm Azure Solutions Architect and Microsoft Certified Trainer. Let's get started. Before we start learning about Azure Virtual Machines, let me explain for you quickly the virtualization concept. So, virtualization is the abstraction layer of the underlying infrastructure components, like physical server itself with the CPU, RAM, disks, and network interface cards. So, this is typically the server that you usually buy and you place into your data center. Then we will install on top of it an operating system like Windows Server or Linux. And then we will install our applications within the operating system. However, the downside of this setup is that all the applications will share the same file system. We will open ports like if we host an IIS server and a database server, then we will be forced to expose the whole server to internet. However, we are hosting a database server within the same machine. With the virtualization, we will keep the same hardware or the physical server in place. We will install the operating system and then we will introduce the hypervisor, which is the virtualization layer that will bring us more flexibility in order to share all the underlying infrastructure but create virtual machines on top of that. So the virtual machine will have its own guest OS. The guest OS could be whatever the options that we need. And then within the virtual machine, we can install one or more applications according to our needs. And in this way, we will have the ability to host a 3-layer application, for example, each layer with its own operating system, file system. We will open only the port needed for that application on that VM. Therefore, each VM will have its own components, sharing the CPU, RAM, and disk from the underlying infrastructure, and will get an IP from its dedicated VLAN or virtual network if we are in the cloud of Azure. Now that we have understood the virtualization, let's move on to the Azure Virtual Machines, which is the infrastructure as a service offering in Azure. So this is like renting without needing to maintain your own hardware. So this is the emulation of a physical computer, and you will still have the full control of your operating system to configure and install all the software, runtimes, and so on that you are needing to execute or to run your workloads. And you will have the ability to configure them as you like. And you will have the ability to choose from various range of operating systems, Unix, Windows, Oracle, whatever you want. Then you can choose one of the templates that you will find on the marketplace, like predefined templates for some virtual appliances where you will have some workloads installed on them. And then, if you'd like, you can build and customize your own image where you will be installing all the specificities related to your workload and the configuration that you'd like to have within your organization. So let's take an example, and here we will host a 3-layer application or multi-layer application. It's a web application. It's simple e-commerce application, let's say. Here within a browser, we will connect to an URL through our application gateway. So this is not the topic for today's video, just to have a security layer where we will be exposing our web application. So here we have the first layer, which is the web tier. We will put a virtual machine with IIS role installed that will ensure the web layer for us. And in the second layer, we have the app tier. Within the app tier subnet, we will have the second virtual machine that will have the application server. And on the third layer, we have the the database tier subnet, where we will be hosting a virtual machine with SQL server. So as you can see, each virtual machine is ensuring a different role, having its own software with its own IP address, with its own configuration, and sitting in a dedicated subnet with its own IP and port. Now that we have understood the virtualization, let's move on to the Azure Virtual Machines, which is the infrastructure as a service offering in Azure. So this is like renting without needing to maintain your own hardware. So this is the emulation of a physical computer, and you will still have the full control of your operating system to configure and install all the software, run times, and so on that you are needing to execute or to run your workloads. And you will have the ability to configure them as you like, and you will have the ability to choose from various range of operating systems, Unix, Windows, Oracle, whatever you want. Then you can choose one of the templates that you will find on the marketplace, like predefined templates for some virtual appliances where you will have some workloads installed on them. And then, if you'd like, you can build and customize your own image where you will be installing all the specificities related to your workload and the configuration that you'd like to have within your organization. So let's take an example, and here we will host a 3-layer application or multi-layer application. It's a web application. It's simple e-commerce application, let's say. Here within a browser, we will connect to an URL through our application gateway. So this is not the topic for today's video, just to have a security layer where we will be exposing our web application. So here we have the first layer, which is the web tier. We will put a virtual machine with IIS role installed that will ensure the web layer for us. And in the second layer, we have the app tier. Within the app tier subnet, we will have the second virtual machine that will have the application server. And on the third layer, we have the the database tier subnet, where we will be hosting a virtual machine with SQL server installed on top of it. So as you can see, each virtual machine is ensuring a different role, having its own software with its own IP address, with its own configuration, and sitting in a dedicated subnet with its own IP and port exposed for our workloads. This, for a single VM deployment, we have an SLA between 95% for HDD disk that can goes up to 99.9% if we go for premium SSD disk. This is the least scalable solution when using virtual machines on Azure, as we have a single point of failure. In order to have a highly available solution, we will consider using the virtual machine availability sets, which deploys 2 or more virtual machines into a logical group of VMs with the same role. For our example, we will deploy a second virtual machine with IIS server, for example, to ensure highly available web application role. And this way, each virtual machine will be deployed into its own server rack, which is the full domain, which have different power and networking resources. And the same way, we will have a different update domain for each virtual machine, which will prevent virtual machines from being rebooted simultaneously. Then there is 2 considerations when you work with availability sets in Azure. The first one, you have to group virtual machines with the same workload type, like having a dedicated availability set for IaaS servers and another dedicated availability set for database workloads, for example. And another thing to consider is that you cannot add virtual machines post creation to an availability set. So you need to consider this since the creation phase. And one last thing is that you have no additional cost when you create availability sets. You will only pay for the virtual machines created. Let's get back to our example that we had earlier here on the web tier subnet, for example. We can add 2 other instances. So these 3 virtual machines will have the same functionality. These are IaaS servers configured the same way. So we need to take care of creating the load balancer to load balance traffic from our application gateway to the backend. This is not getting created for you if you create the virtual machine availability set. And then Azure will spread the VMs across different fault domain and update domains. And then you will have your workloads with an SLA of 99.95%. The same thing we can have for the application layer as well. We can create a different application availability set with 2 or more VMs. So this will depend on our sizing, how many VMs we would like to have. So let's move on to the next scaling option, and let's talk about the virtual machine scale sets. This will let you create and manage identical load balanced VMs that will automatically scale out when needed, like during peak hours or to handle specific tasks within a specific time frame. So if we take the example of web tier subnet, we can, since the creation of the virtual machine, opt for scale set option. This will allow us to have the ability to scale horizontally. That will add more instances when needed. So if we have like an e-commerce application and during the sale period, we will have more traffic coming into our e-commerce application, then the virtual machines will be spin up automatically for us according to some metrics or according to a specific schedule. This could be automatically or manually set up. So you can have zero VM when you have no workloads at all, and then you will not pay for the virtual machines. You still be paying for the disks because this is cannot be scaled down, but the virtual machine itself could be scaled from zero to 1,000 virtual machines or 600, depending on the configuration of the virtual machine. The same thing could be for the application tier and so on. So the advantage of this is that you don't care about creating the load balancer. This will be creating a load balancer for you automatically behind the scenes, managed by Microsoft. And from your application gateway, for example, you will point to the scale set directly. And this will provide as a 99.99% of SLA. So this is a very scalable and highly available solution when we are working with virtual machines, and will take out all the complexity and planning for our scaling. So virtual machine scale sets are ideal for workloads that are unpredictable and will allow us to avoid all upfront costs and pay only for virtual machines when they are needed. All right, now we have learned about the Azure Virtual Machine, understood the availability sets and virtual machine scale set. Now, let's move on to the practical part of our video and jump over to the Azure portal and create a virtual machine. For that, we need to click on Create Resource, then choose Virtual Machine from the list. And here we need to provide some details like VM name, resource group, and location. In the availability options, we have three options, which are availability zones that we have covered in an earlier video. These are unique physical locations within an Azure region. Each zone is made up of one or more data centers equipped with independent power, cooling, and networking. And for today's video, we have learned about availability sets, which will spread VMs across multiple fault domain and update domains with the same data within the same data center to prevent rebooting the VMs at the same time and spread VMs into different server racks and fault domains. However, the VM scale sets will auto-scale identical VM across different fault domains in multiple availability zones, ensuring an SLA of 99.99%. Next, we will keep all default options and we validate and create our VM. In less than a minute, we did create VNet, subnet, public IP, the security group, the virtual machine itself, and so on. So let's go to the resource. This is our virtual machine running. Everything is okay. So now we have created the single virtual machine. Let's ask Copilot to assist us to create the availability zone virtual machine with Azure CLI. So let's try this out. So command line to create Azure Virtual Machine with availability set using Azure CLI. And as you can see, in a couple of seconds, Copilot have provided us the steps to follow in order to create the virtual machine within an availability set. So the first step is to create the availability set itself. And the command line here is AZVM availability set create. We need to provide the resource group and the name of our availability set. And on the second step, we need to create the VM itself within that availability set. And the command line here is AZVM create. We provide the resource group, the name of our VM, the image, the availability set that we have created earlier, and we are ready to go. So let's try this out directly from the portal. We can jump over to the Cloud Shell and try this two command lines that proposed by Copilot. So let's try the command proposed by Copilot and hit enter. This command line will create an availability set called AVS-01. And in a couple of seconds, the availability set has been created successfully. Next, we take the second command line in order to create our virtual machine within the availability set created previously. And in a couple of seconds, the VM has been created successfully in the right availability set. Let's go to the portal and check the component. And here, as you can see, the virtual machine was created successfully where it should be. Now let's try to add a second virtual machine into the same availability set. Now the VM is created. Let's go to the AVS-01, the availability set. And as you can see, the second VM was created. That this was deployed into the second fault domain and on the second update domain. We saw with the help of Copilot how to create the availability set and the VM within it. And we can ask it to provision the command line for the scale set as well. Help me create with Azure CLI VM scale set. The AZ VMSS create resource group, we provide the scale set name. We provide the image for sure, the orchestration mode, if it's flexible, we have different orchestration mode, the instance count. So here we need 2 instances. We can tell how many instances we need. We still have the options to go for automatic scale or manual and so on. So this is within a single command line. You create the virtual machine within a virtual machine scale set. As simple as that. You don't have to worry about anything else, neither the load balancing solution or setting up the fault domains, the update domains, and so on. Will be managed by Microsoft behind the scenes for you, and you will have the 99.99% of SLA out of the box. So that's it for today's video. Hope the virtual machines, the availability sets, and availability scale set or the virtual machine scale sets were clear for you. Hope I did provide you more clarifications and that the concepts are clear for now. This is a video for the foundational level, so we didn't get into all the advanced features when created a virtual machine. We will have another dedicated video for advanced level. And please do not hesitate to subscribe to my channel, follow me for more content, and let's continue our learning journey. Next video, we are going to focus on another interesting topic, and we will get into a second compute option, which are the containerization and the web application, the functions, and so on. So we still have more topics to cover on the AZ-900 video series. Provide me comments on the comment section below, and happy learning. Stay safe and bye bye.